All right, so today I'm talking about local storage API. And just to give a little background on what this actually is, so as you've guessed, it's a way to store things. An API, it stores it in the browser, and it does this with key pairs. And the great thing about this, it is more secure and holds more data than cookies, because I know we're all aware of cookies. A lot of websites still use cookies today. And there are two ways to use API. You can either use a session storage, and this works for this keeps the data even for reloads and restores on the same browser. The big difference is, like with the second one, local storage, is it still works if the browser is closed and reopened, and that data will still be there. So it will only go away if you delete it, pretty much. So a couple limitations on API. It's not secure. So there's no data protection. With that in mind, you never want to do any passwords, credit cards, any sensitive information of users or anything of that sort. And it's really not a substitute for a server-based database when it comes down to it. But it does, like I said, it does have a 5 megapixels limit on major browsers, which is more than cookies are. Method of use, and I'm going to give examples of the set item, get item, and remove and clear. I did not give an example of key. But set item, this is where you add a key and a value. Get item, that's where you actually retrieve the value by the key from the browser storage. And then remove item, you remove item by key. And clear, it's where you clear all the items in the storage. So a couple other things dealing with arrays and objects. With API, it converts everything into a string. So if you have an array or object, you have to convert that to a string. To work with it. And to do that, you use JSON.stringify, the method there. And I haven't yet studied on JSON, and I don't think any else of us have covered, so I can't really give background on exactly what JSON is quite yet. But then once you put it to string, and then when you're actually getting the item, you want to parse it back into an object so that it's actually usable, that you can grab different items from the array, and I will give an example of that. So we're going to just jump right into the code right now. So to start off, and I probably want to be on that page. So this is going to be an example of just simple data. So for right here, I'm going to give you an example of just setting an item and getting an item and simple data. And I know this says local storage, but I'm actually going to be using a session for this. So I have a function bob, which is called once I click the button. And right here, this is just grabbing the input of whatever the user put in. And here we set the item. So like I said, you do session storage dot set item, and then you do the key, which I named first name, and then you do the value, which is whatever the user inputs. Then to actually get the item, you have to do session storage dot get item, and then you put the name of the value, of the key to retrieve the value. And in this case, it's whatever the people put in. So I'm going to put Rachel, but before I do that, to actually see what's going on, you want to pull up your console, and under application, you can see storage, local storage, and session storage. And like I said, we're doing session, and you can see there's nothing in there right now. So I'm going to put submit, and right there you see that the name value pair was stored. And you can see that if I put it to Bob, it changes. I put it to Kelly, it changes. So it stores that. So what happens if I refresh the page? It still stays in there. And so going down a little bit more, this is an example of session storage with an array. Both of these examples are for arrays, but I wanted to also show the difference between what happens if you don't parse back into an object. And this will be shown in the colors function one. So I'm going to be creating, using an array of colors right here. So I've created an array of colors, I put all the colors of the rainbow. Yet again, I stored it as a session, and I set, and you see here, so the key is colors, and then for the array, I'm putting it into a string. So I did json.stringify colors, which is the array up here, which would be all this. But in this example, I did not put it back. I did not use parse. So, and the problem with that, like I said, is you're just going to have a string. You can't actually grab anything out of the array. So, for example, I create that session, and just get a string. And what that means is I wouldn't be able to just grab yellow or just grab green. It's a string. And as you see, if you look up here, now in the session storage, I have that new storage, that new array that I just created. So to give contrast to that, I've created a local storage. And in this one, I just had some fun and just did the houses of Hogwarts. So I have all the houses stored in the houses array. And like I said earlier, now it's a local, so you say local storage.setItem. The key is houses. And then I put the array, I convert it to a string. Then on this one, I wanted to get the item, and I stored it in the retrieved item, the array. And with that, I changed that. I parsed the retrieved data back into an array. So I made the string back into an array. And you'll see the difference right here. I actually get, it's not a string, it's an array. And for example, I will show you that now I can like use it as a normal array. I actually want to get the second index of this array. And when I create that now, I now just get Ravenclaw because it's the second index. So you can see, very important, remember to parse back into an array so it's useful. And so to give an example of what I said earlier to see, and if you see here, the local storage, you'll see the houses right here that I just created. So like I said, if we refresh, they're both going to be fine. But what happens though is if I close the browser and I reopen it, and I go back to F12, and now you see here, the local storage has lasted, but if we go actually into the session storage, it's all gone. So like I said, that's a big advantage with local storage. With that being said, but what if I actually want to remove the whole houses array? And this is where we have this function comes in very handy. So I just created a function. I'll just pull up here where they click it. It's just, you just do local storage.clear. I'm pretty much saying everything in local storage I want to be cleared. I want it to be deleted. And there you go, it deletes it. All right, so lastly, I have associated arrays because that was another thing. And I know the topic also mentioned objects, but arrays are objects, so I wasn't quite sure. Hopefully this covered all of it. I will ask the teacher for better clarification on it. But so associated array was actually kind of fun to do. So as you guys remember, associated array, that's really where you have multiple keys and pairs. So for this one, I just had the array, associative array named user, and I have first name Bob, last name Smith, age 45. Those are my key pairs. And so it's really just the same as before, as a normal array. You're just adding more values. So, you set the item and use stringify. And then I yet again did var retrieve because I like this method because it helps me understand what's going on. And then yet again, you parse it back. And then we do a document.getElementBy right here. And I think I'm actually missing, sorry, I'm just looking this over, is I should have a semicolon right there. Just saw that error. So then I'm just outputting it. So if you see, the nice thing with the associated array is now I can just grab stuff. So like right here, you do the user info, which is now the new key name or the array name. And then I just say by the key, which I'm wanting Bob. And you just do that for each item to grab the specific thing by the key. And you're just using different keys now because you have multiple keys. And then we'll just test it. It should output first name Bob, last name Smith, age 45. So that is pretty much it. And oh yeah, there's a session. So those are the differences. If you guys have any questions, this actually was a topic that took a little bit of studying for me to understand and get working. So here's some resources I really found helpful. So I'll send you guys a link so you guys can grab these resources as well to help you as you're learning API. And that's it.